The 1994 Spider-Man animated series is easily one of the best Spider-Man adaptations ever. With a darker tone, complex storylines, and a deeper look into Peter Parker's life, it took the web-slinger to a whole new level and even stayed true to classic comic arcs, earning it a special place with hardcore fans. Christopher Daniel Barnes defined Spider-Man's voice, just like Kevin Conroy did for Batman, and Madam Web commanded every scene she was in. Plus, here's a fun theory to keep you guessing. Some fans believe the series' portrayal of Peter as an adult hints that he could eventually mentor the next generation of spider heroes, a subtle setup for future Spider-Verse connections. Seeing Spider-Man as an adult, not just a high schooler, made it even more memorable. So, without further ado, let's begin. Spider-Man swings across the city, watching over the streets below. Meanwhile, deep in a subway tunnel, two workers are attacked by a giant lizard-like creature. One escapes and speeds off in fear. Spider-Man spots the van and lands on it, trying to calm the driver, but the man panics and nearly crashes into the river. Spider-Man saves him just in time. Shaken, the worker mutters about a monster with glowing red eyes, but Spider-Man thinks he's imagining things. At the Daily Bugle, Robertson tells Peter Parker to get photos of the lizard. J. Jonah Jameson scolds him for being late, while Eddie Brock jokes that he should have been chosen instead. They mention one missing worker and a list of reptile scientists, including Dr. Curt Connors, Peter's former teacher. Jameson announces a $1,000 reward for the first clear photo. That night, Peter hopes to win the money to help Aunt May. As Spider-Man, he searches the sewers for the creature. Meanwhile, the lizard climbs out near his home, where his wife Margaret and son Billy live. When Spider-Man asks about Kurt, Margaret protects him, leaving Spider-Man confused. Outside, the lizard attacks Eddie, then battles Spider-Man. During the fight, Billy calls the creature Dad, and the lizard disappears into the night. Shocked, Spider-Man learns from Margaret that the lizard is actually Dr. Curt Connors. She explains that Kurt injected himself with lizard DNA and used radiation to regrow his missing arm, but the experiment backfired and turned him into a monster. Spider-Man heads into the sewers where he rescues the missing subway worker and finds Margaret again. The lizard plans to use the neogenic recombinator to turn everyone into lizard creatures, but his rage spirals out of control. As Spider-Man swings through the lab, he grabs the machine, but the lizard tackles him, and they both crash into the water. During the struggle, Spider-Man activates the device, and a bright beam transforms the lizard back into Curt Connors. The remaining mutated blood drains away, ending the experiment for good. Spider-Man helps Kurt home and quietly slips out. The next morning, Eddie Brock drags J. Jonah Jameson to the Connors house, claiming he has proof that Kurt is the lizard. Jameson doubts him. Eddie insists he'll eat that day's Daily Bugle if he's wrong. When Kurt answers the door, calm and normal, Jameson hands Eddie the paper, asking if he wants it cooked or raw. Later, Peter gives Aunt May money from selling his photo of Spider-Man fighting the lizard. She worries he caught germs and decides to make him soup. That night, Spider-Man swings through New York, knowing Peter Parker and Spider-Man will always be one. As Spider-Man swings through New York, his spider sense flares up. A swarm of small flying robots appears and attacks him. He destroys a few, then makes two crash into each other, causing an explosion that lets him escape. At Oscorp, Norman Osborn watches the fight on his monitor and scolds robotics expert Spencer Smythe for failing to destroy Spider-Man. Spencer explains that the Spider Seekers were designed only to find him, not kill him. He then takes his son Alistair, who uses a wheelchair, to another room and reveals a new invention, a massive spider-shaped robot called the Black Widow. The next day at the Daily Bugle, Felicia Hardy meets J. Jonah Jameson to plan her Hardy Foundation charity ball. She needs a photographer, and Robertson suggests Peter Parker. Felicia greets Peter warmly, reminding him they met at Empire State University. Meanwhile, at Oscorp, Spencer completes the Black Widow while Eddie Brock films the project. Norman tells him that capturing Spider-Man will prove he's a criminal. Later, Norman meets the Kingpin, who warns that if the plan fails, Oscorp will be his. That night, as the charity ball begins, Spider Seekers fill the skies. Inside, Felicia kisses Peter during their dance, but Flash barges in dressed as Spider-Man. When the real Black Widow robot smashes through the ceiling, chaos erupts as everyone flees in terror. The Black Widow first targets Aunt May, but Peter quickly gets her to safety. It then attacks Felicia, forcing Peter to change into Spider-Man and rescue her. During the fight, falling debris knocks him out, and the robot carries him to Oscorp. Later, at a penthouse, Jameson and Aunt May watch Eddie Brock's news report showing Spider-Man's capture, but when the mask is removed, it's revealed to be Flash Thompson, not Peter. The real Spider-Man arrives soon after, realizing the robot took the wrong person. Meanwhile, Kingpin's men invade Oscorp and kidnap Flash. Spencer tells Norman he thought they were handing Spider-Man to the police, but Norman says it's now out of his hands. When Spider-Man hears Flash is in danger, he races to save him. After Norman takes Alistair and leaves, Spencer takes control of the Black Widow himself. The robot smashes Spider-Man with a steel beam, sending him flying. Out of web fluid, Spider-Man tries to climb to safety, but the robot sprays oil, making him fall. He leaps onto its back, but Smythe slams it against the wall to shake him off. Spotting Flash through the robot's camera, Smythe goes after him. Spider-Man stuffs web cartridges into its rockets, causing them to explode. The Black Widow falls into acid and is destroyed. As Oscorp explodes, Spider-Man saves Flash while Norman, Eddie, and Alistair watch Spencer's fate from below. On a distant asteroid, astronaut John Jameson uncovers a strange black rock buried in the ground. As he digs it out, a thick black liquid oozes around it, and the surface begins to shake. John grabs the rock and rushes back to his shuttle, escaping just before the asteroid collapses. Back on Earth, J. Jonah Jameson proudly watches a news report about his son John and fellow astronaut Paul Stevenson, who are returning with a new isotope called Promethium X, said to be more powerful than plutonium. Peter Parker congratulates Jameson, while Robbie Robertson praises John's courage. Secretly, Peter thinks the apple has fallen far from the tree. At Crime Central, Kingpin watches the same broadcast and decides to steal the isotope. During re-entry, the black ooze seeps into the cockpit, covering Stevenson and sending the shuttle off course toward New York. Kingpin sends Rhino to retrieve the Promethium X. As the shuttle crashes near the George Washington Bridge, Spider-Man arrives and faces Rhino. They fight across the wreckage until Rhino knocks Spider-Man unconscious and escapes with the isotope. Spider-Man places a tracer on Rhino and rescues the astronauts, but the shuttle sinks into the Hudson River. J. Jonah Jameson blames Spider-Man for the crash after hearing John mention black slime. That night, as Peter sleeps, the same black substance from his costume slowly creeps over him. Peter dreams of a black blob fighting his Spider-Man suit until the blob wins and consumes him. He wakes up hanging upside down in the city, wearing a strange black costume. A helicopter spots him and comments on the change. To his surprise, his webbing fires automatically, and his jumps are stronger than ever. He nearly clears an entire rooftop. Realizing the suit boosts his powers, Spider-Man tests it across the city, lifting a fire truck with ease. When police arrive, the suit morphs into a uniform to hide him, then changes into Peter's regular clothes. Intrigued, he decides to keep it. The next day at Empire State University, Peter experiments more, watching the suit shift into an Italian outfit. Felicia Hardy spots him, and they chat until Flash Thompson interrupts. Peter angrily grabs Flash's jacket, but Felicia steps in saying his behavior scares her. Peter feels unstoppable. Meanwhile, Kingpin orders Rhino to steal control rods made of Lydium-90. That night, Aunt May warns Peter to stop taking photos of Spider-Man before someone gets hurt. Frustrated, he storms to his room, where his tracker shows Rhino's location. The suit instantly morphs into his black costume and Peter swings off. At a military base, Spider-Man overpowers Rhino in a brutal fight but nearly kills him before stopping himself, horrified to see his reflection as a monster staring back. 3 police helicopters sweep across the night sky after spotting Spider-Man. The pilots close in, eager to claim J. Jonah Jameson's $1 million reward. Spider-Man stays calm, certain his new black suit makes him unbeatable. Clinging to a wall, he thinks about how Jameson has turned the whole city against him. Suddenly, a man fires a grappling hook, but Spider-Man dodges and pulls him into a wall. Another fires a net, which Spider-Man easily avoids before webbing him up. A third uses a sonic weapon that weakens the suit.
Everything's going dark!
Sending Spider-Man falling, but a black tendril shoots out, grabbing a nearby building and saving him. When the weapon fires again, the suit covers its barrel, silencing it. Another attacker tries a flamethrower, but the suit reacts fast, pulling Spider-Man to safety. He rips a flagpole from the wall and strikes a fire hydrant, flooding the street. The men retreat, fearing their power packs will explode. Determined to end this, Spider-Man bursts into the Daily Bugle, confronting Jameson and Eddie Brock for spreading lies. When security rushes in, he throws a desk at them and escapes. Realizing the suit is changing him, Spider-Man goes to Dr. Kurt Connors for help. When Connors examines the suit, it comes alive, moving on its own and attacking him. Horrified, Connors realizes the black costume is a living organism. Dr. Connors runs more tests and discovers the black suit is a living alien symbiote that bonds to its host and could eventually take control. He warns Spider-Man to remove it, but Spider-Man insists he still needs it. Meanwhile, J. Jonah Jameson visits his injured son, John, who reveals that a man in a rhino suit stole the Prometheum X. Realizing Spider-Man was innocent, Jameson fires Eddie Brock for hiding the truth. Later, on live TV, Jameson cancels the reward and blames Brock for the mistake. At Crime Central,
Eddie Brock, we have to make sure that
Kingpin orders Alistair Smythe to eliminate Brock, and Smythe assigns Shocker for the job. That night, Brock loses his home and blames Spider-Man for ruining his life. At the same time, Spider-Man sneaks into Brock's apartment to find the stolen film of Rhino and locates it hidden inside the showerhead. Suddenly, Shocker bursts in, demanding the shuttle crash pictures and firing powerful blasts. Spider-Man intervenes, but Brock escapes during the chaos. Shocker collapses the wall on Spider-Man and assumes he's dead, but Spider-Man breaks free and tracks him to Smythe's hideout. After a fierce fight, he traps Smythe, retrieves the Prometheum X, and escapes. Later, Shocker kidnaps John Jameson, forcing Jonah to plead for Spider-Man's help on live TV. Spider-Man agrees and follows them to an old church, unaware that Eddie Brock is secretly watching. Smythe betrays Spider-Man by bringing Shocker to the church. Shocker fires his gauntlets, but Spider-Man dodges and deflects a blast with a shield, scattering weapons everywhere. Brock grabs a mace as Spider-Man gains the upper hand, though the symbiote makes him more violent. Shocker traps Spider-Man under rubble, and Brock tries to help but flees when threatened. Spider-Man breaks free, forcing Shocker to retreat to the bell tower. Up above, Spider-Man catches Shocker by the throat and nearly kills him before Brock tackles him away. Spider-Man traps Brock in his web, defeats Shocker, and almost lets him fall, but catches him at the last second, realizing the suit is corrupting him. Trying to tear it off, he fails until the ringing bell weakens the symbiote. In pain but determined, Spider-Man moves closer and finally rips it off. The creature tries to reattach but throws him off the tower instead. Peter barely holds on as the symbiote falls through the floor, seemingly dead. At Kingpin's lab, Smythe delivers the Prometheum X, but it turns into worthless lead when tested, enraging Kingpin. Back at the church, the surviving symbiote drips onto Eddie Brock, bonding with him and transforming him into a monstrous figure, Venom, swearing revenge on Spider-Man. Eddie Brock trains in his apartment, walls covered with Spider-Man photos. As he lifts weights, memories of his humiliations replay in his mind. Furious, he crushes a photo in his hand and vows revenge. The black symbiote spreads over him, merging with his body. Together, they become Venom. Meanwhile, Spider-Man swings through New York, happy to wear his old suit again, and thinking about his date with Mary Jane. His calm ends when he spots Rhino on a rooftop. Spider-Man dodges Rhino's charge, trapping him by wrapping metal poles around his horn. Suddenly, Shocker attacks, blasting Spider-Man into a Daily Bugle billboard, which collapses on him. Before Shocker can strike again, Venom appears, grabs Rhino, and tosses him aside. Shocker fires his gauntlets, but Venom overpowers him easily. Spider-Man breaks free and sees both villains webbed up. Then Brock steps out of the shadows, revealing he knows Spider-Man's identity before transforming into Venom. Spider-Man warns him to get rid of the symbiote, but Brock refuses, calling it his destiny. Determined to stop him, Spider-Man visits Brock's old apartment and finds a flyer for exercise equipment. Disguised as Peter, he calls the company pretending to be Brock and learns the new address. As he writes it down, Joseph Robertson enters, handing him newspaper clippings about Brock. At the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson proudly announces that NASA will name a new probe after his son, the John Jameson probe. As Peter leaves, he worries his life as Spider-Man is over since Venom knows his identity. Changing in an alley, he spots Brock clinging to a wall. The symbiote spreads over Brock, forming Venom, who threatens to reveal Spider-Man's secret. Venom swings away and Spider-Man chases him to the Bugle's roof. After a fierce battle, Venom traps Spider-Man in his webs and tears off his mask before a watching crowd. Peter barely escapes, covering his face with part of a white flag before swinging away. Later, Peter meets Mary Jane at a theater, but Eddie Brock appears, claiming to be Peter's friend. Peter quickly brushes him off, calling him a weirdo. As they leave, Peter starts imagining Venom everywhere. When they head to the subway, he spots Brock following them, but boards just in time. Back home, Peter tells Aunt May he left early. When the doorbell rings, Brock is there. Peter drags him outside, warning him to stay away, but Brock transforms into Venom and attacks. After Venom flees, Peter vows to end it. Their final battle stretches across the city to a rocket launch site where the shuttle's deafening roar weakens the symbiote, pulling it off Brock. That night, as Mary Jane gazes at the stars, Peter glances at the moon, seeing one last haunting image of Venom. In a dark warehouse, a mysterious man dons a hobgoblin mask and flies into the night on a glider.
Occupation.
Meanwhile, in a limousine, Kingpin talks with Alistair Smythe, explaining that his public image as a respectable businessman hides his criminal empire. Suddenly, the masked man soars over Fisk's limo. At Empire State University, Harry Osborn asks Peter Parker to be his roommate. Peter hesitates, but Harry explains that his father, Norman Osborn, will only pay rent if Harry finds a responsible roommate. Peter worries about expenses, yet Harry assures him it's handled. Later, during the Fisk School of Criminology ceremony, Peter's spider sense warns him of danger, and he pushes Fisk aside just as the hobgoblin attacks. Spider-Man battles the masked villain through the city until his web fluid runs out. That night, Norman confronts Hobgoblin at Oscorp for the failed hit.
You pay up, and I'll take another shot.
But Hobgoblin steals the glider and escapes. At home, Aunt May worries about Peter's safety and urges him to live responsibly. Peter agrees, but promises she'll never be alone. The next day, Peter moves into the new apartment. Flash teases him, and Harry throws a housewarming party where
Brace! I just hope you do bad.
Mary Jane jokes about helping Peter decorate. That night, Hobgoblin breaks into Crime Central, revealing that Norman Osborn hired him to kill Kingpin. Enraged,
Trip to the next world.
Kingpin plots revenge. The next morning, Peter frantically cleans before Aunt May arrives, unaware danger still looms. The Hobgoblin suddenly crashes through the apartment window, tossing a pumpkin bomb that fills the room with smoke. He grabs Harry Osborn and flies off before Peter can react. When the smoke clears, Peter finds Aunt May unconscious and rushes her to the hospital, where doctors say she suffered a seizure.
Get hurt when I'm just trying to do the right thing.
Feeling guilty, Peter blames himself, haunted by memories of Uncle Ben. Meanwhile, Hobgoblin delivers Harry to Crime Central. Smythe warns Kingpin not to trust him, but Kingpin sees potential in Hobgoblin as his protege. Hobgoblin locks Harry in a glass cell and demands ransom. Kingpin calls Norman Osborn, revealing he has Harry and giving him 24 hours to trade his inventions. Peter soon realizes Hobgoblin's real target is Norman. Later, at Oscorp, Hobgoblin warns Norman
I'm telling the truth, and
that Kingpin will betray him and proposes an alliance. Norman agrees, unaware that Smythe is spying through a spider seeker. When Peter arrives to see Norman, guards block him at the gate. Inside, Hobgoblin insists Norman has stronger weapons hidden, and Norman finally shows him a faster, more powerful glider. Peter sneaks in, changes into Spider-Man,
what a perfect opportunity!
And confronts Hobgoblin. The villain escapes on the new glider, dragging Spider-Man through the sky. Hobgoblin cuts the web and fires missiles, sending Spider-Man crashing into a building. As the explosion lights up the night, Hobgoblin laughs, convinced Spider-Man is dead. Spider-Man dives through a window as Hobgoblin's missiles chase him. He escapes through another window just before the bombs explode. Landing on the street, he realizes there are no tall buildings nearby to swing from. Hobgoblin appears above, firing flames from his glider. Spider-Man flips backward to dodge and hides inside a garbage truck, then crawls into a dumpster. Hobgoblin spots him and drops a pumpkin bomb inside, but Spider-Man escapes just before it explodes. He runs through the street as Hobgoblin keeps firing missiles. Hiding under a van, Spider-Man barely survives another blast and crawls into the sewer after Hobgoblin flies away, thinking he's dead. At Oscorp, Norman Osborn watches the news about Harry's kidnapping. Spider-Man suddenly grabs him and demands to know why Hobgoblin was there earlier. Norman hesitates, and Spider-Man realizes Norman made a deal with Hobgoblin to get Harry back by midnight. Spider-Man warns him he'll return at 12:01 a.m. to make sure the deal is kept. Later, Peter visits Aunt May in the hospital, feeling guilty about her condition. At the hospital, the doctor tells Mary Jane that Aunt May's condition hasn't improved, leaving her worried about Peter's absence. Meanwhile, Spider-Man returns to Oscorp with Harry and demands answers from Norman, who refuses to talk. Spider-Man accuses him of endangering both Harry and himself by making deals with Hobgoblin. Norman admits his mistakes but insists he loves his son. Harry wakes up and Spider-Man's spider sense goes off. Hobgoblin appears outside, hurling a pumpkin bomb that causes a steel beam to fall. Spider-Man catches it before it hits Norman and Harry, then rushes out to chase Hobgoblin. As the villain dives toward him, Spider-Man jumps clear and the glider crashes into a smokestack. Hobgoblin falls into the river, vowing revenge. At New York's airport, government agents led by a red-haired woman surround a man and hold him at gunpoint. He presses a button on his suitcase, releasing smoke that lets him escape. Disguised as a co-pilot for J3 Communications, he hijacks a helicopter and takes off. Agents give chase, but the stolen chopper spins out of control after hitting a building and crashes. Spider-Man swings in just in time to rescue the man before it explodes. The blast damages a nearby scaffolding, and Spider-Man saves 2 workers from falling. Meanwhile, the rescued man quietly changes shape and disappears. Later at the Daily Bugle, Peter Parker rushes into J. Jonah Jameson's office as photographers prepare him for a tux fitting. Peter follows him to the elevator, asking to cover the peace treaty signing. Jameson refuses, calling it too dangerous. On their way in the limo, the driver suddenly traps both men with electronic cuffs. The limo transforms into a plane and takes off. Peter stays calm, realizing the real target is Jameson. Locked in a cell, he escapes through the vents and discovers a secret training base for assassins floating in the sky. There, he spots Jameson speaking with a man he thought was dead, Colonel Nick Fury, who reveals he now leads S.H.I.E.L.D., a covert agency protecting global security. Nick Fury shows Jameson a hologram of the Chameleon, a master spy who uses an image inducer belt to change his appearance. He explains that Chameleon plans to sabotage the upcoming peace treaty, which could trigger a war. Fury gives Jameson a lapel pin that signals S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and sends him and Peter back to the city. Meanwhile, Chameleon disguises himself as Jameson, sneaks into the Daily Bugle, and copies staff photos. When Glory Grant enters, he coldly orders her to bring the security plans. Moments later, the real Jameson and Peter arrive. Chameleon quickly changes into Robbie Robertson, but Peter's spider sense tells him something is off. When Glory returns, confusion erupts since she already delivered the plans earlier. Jameson realizes Robbie is the Chameleon and presses the shield pin for help. As Chameleon walks down the hall, he spots the real Robbie and hides, but S.H.I.E.L.D. agents mistake the real one for him and tackle him. Spider-Man, watching from the ceiling, notices his spider sense isn't reacting and realizes they caught the wrong man. He drops down and stops them. From the helicarrier, Fury sees Spider-Man on the security feed and orders Agent 1 to capture him. She fires a laser beam, but Spider-Man dodges. Meanwhile, the real Chameleon, disguised as Glory, escapes, but Spider-Man catches up until Chameleon sprays gas in his face and escapes again. Chameleon disguises himself as Peter Parker and takes the elevator down. In the lobby, Mary Jane stops him to talk about her Shakespeare Festival role. Spotting S.H.I.E.L.D. agents nearby, Chameleon kisses her to avoid suspicion and escapes. That night, he sneaks into the Daily Bugle to prepare for the peace treaty sabotage while Spider-Man searches for him. In the basement, a maintenance man checks the gas lines but is attacked by Chameleon, who steals his identity and heads to the penthouse where the event is taking place. Agent 1 soon arrives and tells Jameson that Fury wants the VIPs moved from the penthouse. As they leave, Peter secretly follows them to the rooftop. There, Fury greets everyone, but Spider-Man notices the patches on the wrong eye and realizes it's the Chameleon. When he attacks, Agent 1 shoots at him, thinking Spider-Man is attacking Fury. Spider-Man quickly points out the eye patch mistake, and the real Fury confirms his story through the radio. Exposed, Chameleon flees in a helicopter, but Agent 1 shoots it down, sending it crashing into the river. The next day at the UN peace signing, Peter is revealed to be the Chameleon in disguise. Spider-Man arrives, defeats him, and S.H.I.E.L.D. takes him into custody. Later, Fury thanks Spider-Man. When Peter returns home, Mary Jane angrily slaps him, and he realizes Chameleon kissed her while posing as him.
And I do wish I had.
From atop a skyscraper, Spider-Man watches the bustling streets below and muses that everyone probably has someone close to them. He jokes that at least Bruce the Gargoyle is always there for him before swinging off. As he soars through the city, he wishes he had someone to talk to, maybe Felicia Hardy or Mary Jane Watson, but convinces himself no woman could ever stay with a guy who crawls on walls. Suddenly, while clinging to a building, he loses his grip and plummets, barely catching a ledge. Realizing his powers are weakening, he tries again, only to fall straight into a dumpster full of feathers. That night, New York's crime lords gather. Kingpin boasts about his growing empire, but Silvermane traps him in wires, claiming he's losing control. Kingpin breaks free, reminding everyone that he already has a plan to eliminate Spider-Man. Elsewhere, a small robot sneaks into a prison cell, returning Chameleon's image inducer and communicator from Smythe. Chameleon frees Rhino, Shocker, Mysterio, Scorpion, and Dr. Octopus, and together they escape by helicopter. At a warehouse,
We will draw him out, and then
Kingpin greets them as the Insidious Six. Dr. Octopus hesitates to join, but accepts after being promised a world-class lab. The next morning, Spider-Man searches for the fugitives but finds nothing. His powers return briefly, then fade again mid-swing, sending him crashing onto an awning. Realizing his abilities are unstable, Peter sneaks home
Out jogging.
wrapped in a blanket and collapses into bed. Later, his powers suddenly return. At Empire State University, Dr. Connors lectures on neogenics and offers a lab position for the best experiment. Peter meets Deborah, Morbius, and Felicia, until Flash shows footage of Spider-Man with criminals, forcing Peter to rush off and investigate. Spider-Man arrives at the crime scene and faces Rhino, dodging his powerful charges. Before he can react, Shocker, Chameleon, and Scorpion ambush him, forcing him to retreat into a parking garage. A speeding train rushes toward him, but it's just one of Mysterio's illusions. Before he can recover, Dr. Octopus crashes in and grabs him with his metal arms. As the Insidious Six surround him, Scorpion demands to finish Spider-Man himself, but Doc Ock mocks him,
coordinated absurdly.
sparking a fight among the villains. During the chaos, Shocker accidentally blasts Doc Ock's arm, freeing Spider-Man, who escapes before Kingpin angrily orders them to stop. Spider-Man runs but loses his powers again and can't climb the wall. He fires his web at Doc Ock's arm but is thrown across the street, injuring himself. Scorpion and Shocker attack, forcing Spider-Man into the subway. He lands on a train, changes back to Peter, and decides to find out why his powers are fading. At ESU, Dr. Connors studies his DNA and discovers unstable neogenic mutations that might end his powers for good. Meanwhile, Kingpin orders the Six to find Spider-Man. Outside, Scorpion follows Peter, thinking he can lead them to the hero. Dr. Octopus joins him, planning the hunt himself.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Otto.
Later, disguised as Dr. Otto Octavius, he tricks Aunt May into coming with him. When Peter returns home, he finds a note demanding Spider-Man come to 636 Battery Street to save her. Despite his weakened powers, he rushes there, only to fall into a trap where Aunt May turns into Chameleon as the Insidious Six close in.
Are you okay?
As Aunt May waits anxiously at the clinic, the Chameleon, disguised as a nurse, tells her that Peter is in serious condition but under Dr. Otto Octavius's care. Meanwhile, in the basement, Spider-Man fights the Insidious Six. Shocker blasts at him, but Spider-Man dodges and escapes, only to run into Dr. Octopus. While fleeing, he triggers one of Mysterio's holocubes, creating a holographic jungle to hide. Octavius and the others search, unaware that Spider-Man has lost his powers. He tries to avoid Rhino and Scorpion but is eventually captured. At Crime Central, Kingpin praises the Six for capturing Spider-Man. When Dr. Octopus unmasks him, everyone is stunned to see Peter Parker. Thinking he's an imposter, they tie him up, but a blast from Shocker frees him. Peter secretly takes one of Mysterio's holocubes. Octavius threatens Aunt May's life to force Peter to help find the real Spider-Man. Later, Octavius disguises Peter as a patient to fool May. After she leaves, Chameleon warns Peter that they'll target her again if he disobeys. Meanwhile, Kingpin launches an attack on Silvermane's headquarters using Rhino, Shocker, and Scorpion. Hammerhead tries to protect Silvermane but is revealed to be Chameleon in disguise. As chaos unfolds, Peter meets the Six at a hotel, pretending it's where he meets Spider-Man. Using a holocube to project a fighter jet, he tricks them and escapes. As Rhino charges after Peter, he uses another holocube to create a canyon illusion and escapes. Shocker blasts him off the roof, but Peter survives and realizes his powers are back. Transforming into Spider-Man, he swings away with Silvermane. Dr. Octopus spots them and tells Shocker to stop them, but Spider-Man grabs Shocker and throws him into a water tower. Water floods Shocker's suit, forcing him out before it explodes. Spider-Man then swings to another building, lowering Silvermane through a chimney. Dr. Octopus and Scorpion land on the roof, attacking together. When Scorpion fires acid, it hits Kingpin's helicopter, damaging the rotor and sending it spinning. Smythe retreats to Crime Central. Caught between Scorpion and Doc Ock, Spider-Man dodges as Scorpion's acid melts one of Ock's arms, turning them against each other. Spider-Man escapes and finds Silvermane talking to children who mistake him for Santa Claus. Grateful, Silvermane thanks Spider-Man for saving him and vows to take down Kingpin. Later, the Insidious Six meet and agree to abandon Kingpin despite his protests. Smythe warns that Silvermane is gathering power, but Kingpin swears revenge. The next day, Peter apologizes to Felicia, but she chooses Morbius instead. Back home, Peter meets Aunt May and Mary Jane. At ESU, Kurt Connors warns Spider-Man that his DNA is mutating, and he may no longer remain human. One night at Coney Island, Spider-Man reads a Daily Bugle article blaming him for a string of robberies by a superpowered thief. Frustrated, he wonders why the police can't see he's one of the good guys. Spotting a purse snatcher, he quickly stops him but admits he's worried about his illness and how it's changing him. He thinks about inviting Mary Jane to Coney Island, but decides against it, afraid she might take it the wrong way. Meanwhile, at an aquarium, guards watch over a $2 million pearl necklace in a tank. Suddenly, a man appears inside, breaks the glass, and escapes with the pearls. Hearing the alarm, Spider-Man rushes over, but a giant wave knocks him into a tank. He escapes using an exploding web cartridge, but the guards mistake him for the thief. Outside, the real thief, Maury Bench, says the pearls are for Mary Jane. Later, Maury sneaks up on Mary Jane at her hotel, puts the necklace around her neck, and begs for another chance. She firmly rejects him, saying he made her life miserable. When Spider-Man looks back, Maury vanishes. At Washington Square Park, Maury confronts her again, revealing he can control water. Calling himself Hydro Man, he attacks, but Spider-Man intervenes. Hydro Man's watery body reforms with every hit until Spider-Man bursts through a water tower to escape. Spider-Man saves Mary Jane and swings her away, but she panics, thinking he's Hydro Man. Realizing it's him, she demands to be put down. She explains the thief is Morris Bench, an old high school boyfriend, but doesn't know how he got his powers. Spider-Man warns her that Hydro Man won't stop and gives her a spider tracer for safety. Watching her leave, he finally understands why she struggles with commitment. That night, Peter studies a water sample from Hydro Man and develops a new type of webbing. At the Coffee Bean, Liz tells him Mary Jane is staying with her and gives him the address. Unaware, Hydro Man overhears through a sink faucet and learns it too. At Liz's apartment, Mary Jane looks at her father's photo, vowing not to run away again. Suddenly, Hydro Man bursts from the faucet and kidnaps her. Peter becomes Spider-Man and follows the trail. He traps Hydro Man with his new web that hardens like concrete, but Hydro Man eventually breaks free. After a brutal fight, Mary Jane flees to a recycling plant. Hydro Man reforms after being hit by a car and corners her near a furnace. Spider-Man arrives, saying she's already beaten him by luring him away from water. Hydro Man evaporates, defeated, while later, at Coney Island, Peter and Mary Jane share a quiet moment in the rain and kiss. As Spider-Man swings through New York, he tells himself that Dr. Mariah Crawford might finally have a cure for his mutation. Hearing an alarm,
City Midnight Ski Team.
he spots thieves escaping in a car and lands on the roof, but pain shoots through his side, causing him to crash. Weak and shaken, he escapes as police arrive. At the Hardy Foundation, Dr. Crawford explains that her new serum could reverse his mutation, but needs more testing. Ignoring her warnings,
Doc Connor said I could mutate.
Spider-Man demands the cure, reminding her how she once cured Kraven. Reluctantly, she gives him the vial before security bursts in and he escapes. That night at ESU, Peter tests the serum on his blood instead of himself. Michael Morbius later finds it, thinking it's Peter's secret project. When a bat flies into the beam and drinks the blood, it bites Morbius, transforming him into a vampire-like creature. Feeling stronger but horrified, Morbius attacks a student to feed. Spider-Man intervenes but collapses in pain. Discovering the truth from Morbius's recorder,
Absolutely got to stay away from him.
Peter vows to save him and warns Felicia, but she thinks he's jealous. Later, Morbius appears on her balcony, terrifying her. Spider-Man arrives and fights him, but Sunrise turns Morbius human again. Fleeing, Spider-Man blames himself and injects Dr. Crawford's serum, only to scream as 4 new arms burst from his body. From downstairs, Aunt May hears strange noises in Peter's room and goes to check. When she enters, Peter is gone. She finds his shirt torn with 3 holes on each side and sees a shadow move across the wall, but convinces herself she's imagining things. On the roof, Peter hides, terrified she might see his 4 extra arms. Meanwhile, in an abandoned warehouse, 3 thugs hold a woman hostage for ransom. Suddenly, the Punisher blasts through the wall, takes down 2 thugs, and corners the last one. When the thug begs for mercy, the Punisher aims his gun, saying jail won't change him. The thug dives out the window, where police catch him. The Punisher frees the hostage as his partner, Microchip, informs him of a new target: Spider-Man. Back home, Peter examines his mutation and realizes Dr. Crawford was right. After cutting holes in his costume, his spider sense flares painfully. When Mary Jane calls to invite him out, he refuses, but she insists she's coming over. Afraid she'll see him, Peter escapes into the city. Elsewhere, Morbius attacks another victim.
Oh, Spider-Man! Good.
Spider-Man rushes to Dr. Crawford, who's shocked by his transformation. As she draws his blood, she tells him Morbius has already mutated. On TV, Felicia blames Spider-Man for Morbius's disappearance, while Jameson demands his capture. Punisher and Microchip watch a news broadcast about Spider-Man. When it ends, Microchip urges Punisher to capture him alive to restore his reputation. Punisher agrees and switches to non-lethal weapons. Meanwhile,
Spider-Man has apparently...
Spider-Man realizes the creature mentioned in the report is Morbius and goes after him, ignoring Dr. Crawford's warnings. On a rooftop, he tackles Morbius, who's startled by Spider-Man's new mutation. They fight fiercely until Morbius throws him off the building. Spider-Man clings to the wall, only for Punisher to appear, trapping him in a force field. After a chase, Punisher catches him in a net. At the Daily Bugle, Robbie tells Jameson that the man with the skull symbol is the Punisher, wanted by the FBI and CIA for links to missing crime figures. Jameson sees a headline opportunity, but Robbie warns that Punisher kills criminals, making him unfit for hero praise. As Punisher pulls the net up, Spider-Man breaks free but is pinned against a wall by adhesive fire. Punisher accuses him of kidnapping Morbius
To punish someone.
which Spider-Man denies before webbing Punisher up. The police close in, but Punisher escapes using his van's laser. Later, Spider-Man spots another drained victim and tracks Morbius to a clock tower. Their fight wrecks the building, and as Spider-Man flees, his mutation worsens, turning him into a humanoid spider. Inside the burning warehouse, Punisher faces the monstrous, mutated Spider-Man. When Spider-Man spits acid, Punisher narrowly dodges as it burns through his jacket. He grabs his gun, but Spider-Man knocks it away and hurls him across the room. Staggering up, Punisher finds Spider-Man's torn mask and realizes the creature is him. Another blast of acid hits nearby chemicals, igniting the warehouse. As flames spread, Punisher tries to escape, but Spider-Man traps him in webbing and drags him closer. Before he can strike, the battle van crashes through the wall. Punisher jumps inside, and as it speeds off, Spider-Man tears at the van's side before being thrown away, crashing through another wall. A construction worker sees the creature and runs in terror.
Like something out of a...
Firefighters arrive, and police question the witness. Detective Terry Lee studies a sketch of the monster and a shred of Spider-Man's costume before ordering an APB. Meanwhile, Dr. Mariah Crawford sees the report and contacts Sergei Kravinoff for help. At sunrise, Spider-Man hides in the subway as Aunt May and Mary Jane report him missing. That night, Punisher gears up to hunt the Man-Spider. Elsewhere, Felicia Hardy stares at Morbius's photo while he watches from a rooftop, resisting his hunger. Seeking a cure, he returns to ESU just as Man-Spider invades the lab, scaring Deborah Whitman and Flash Thompson. Morbius attacks Flash, prompting a brutal clash between the two creatures. On a nearby rooftop, Punisher battles Kraven. After a fierce fight, Punisher traps him in a net and warns him to stay away, but Kraven breaks free, vowing to save Spider-Man before the hunter destroys his prey. After hearing Mary Jane's terrified message,
To come quickly. I know where...
Harry Osborn races to her house. Meanwhile, at the Parker home, Aunt May watches a news report about Peter's disappearance. Outside, Man-Spider crawls to her window, scratching the glass before quickly retreating. He then heads to Mary Jane's home, crashing through her window.
Leave her alone!
She screams as Harry rushes to protect her, but is thrown aside. When Mary Jane pleads for the creature to stop, it freezes, then leaves her unharmed. Shaken, she tells Harry that it somehow knew her. While Punisher hunts from his battle van, Man-Spider leaps onto the hood, sending it off a cliff. Punisher escapes before it explodes, but is captured and webbed up in a parking garage. Kraven soon arrives, frees him, and suggests they work together. But when Punisher touches a web, Man-Spider attacks. The two hunters fight side by side, trapping the creature in an electric field. Punisher raises a grenade to finish it, but Kraven stops him. Dr. Mariah Crawford arrives, begging Punisher to spare her friend. She reminds him that Spider-Man is also a victim, just as his family once was. Realizing she's right, Punisher helps her inject the cure.
Easy, Spider-Man.
As Spider-Man reverts to normal, Mariah places his mask back on. Grateful, he thanks her. His Calypso. At sunrise, Kraven and Mariah leave as Spider-Man watches from a rooftop, smiling before swinging into the morning sky. At Toomes Aerodynamics, Norman Osborn tells the board that Adrian Toomes wastes money on useless projects like reversing aging and defying gravity. He argues that Toomes is too old to run the company,
Mold it into Oscorp and make a great...
and proposes merging it with Oscorp. Norman then reveals Toomes is listening through a speaker. Furious, Toomes warns there's only room for one bird of prey in his company. Norman takes it as a threat. Moments later, Toomes straps on his mechanical wings and flies out the window. In Central Park, Spider-Man watches a kid skating and wishes life were that simple. He worries that without another radiation dose, he'll turn into the Man-Spider again. Suddenly, Toomes swoops down, grabs the boy, and drains his youth to become young again. Spider-Man fights him and checks the boy, now aged into an old man. Toomes attacks, but mid-battle, his youth fades, and he retreats. Later, at Toomes Aerodynamics Awards ceremony, Dr. Kurt Connors wins a grant and chooses Deborah Whitman as his assistant. Peter Parker, covering the event, feels hopeful for a cure. But his spider sense warns him of danger. Changing into Spider-Man, he finds Vulture holding Norman Osborn hostage. Vulture drops him, but Spider-Man catches him with a web. They battle across old biplanes until Vulture reverts to his old self and escapes. Peter later develops a photo and confirms Vulture's identity, Adrian Toomes. The next day, Deborah and Flash tour the new Neogenics lab. Deborah is impressed, while Arthur Avis, Toomes' assistant, flirts with her, making Flash jealous. Peter arrives and warns Deborah that partnering with Toomes' aerodynamics is risky, but she brushes him off, thinking he's jealous. Later, Dr. Kurt Connors meets Toomes, who accuses him of hastening his death. Pretending to faint, Toomes paralyzes Connors with a neural device and transforms into the Vulture once more, setting his sights on Harry Osborn. That evening, Peter attends Mary Jane's play. Backstage, she gives him a letter from her missing father, saying she plans to meet him and wants Peter with her. During the show, Peter's spider sense tingles. Vulture circles above the theater. Panic erupts as Vulture swoops in and kidnaps Harry Osborn. Spider-Man swings in, snatching Harry from his claws. They clash mid-air until Vulture checks a timer and realizes he's about to age again. He retreats. From afar, Spider-Man watches Harry comforting Mary Jane, feeling jealous and alone. Later, an aged Vulture returns to Toomes' aerodynamics. Deborah sees him enter and leaves Peter a message to bring his camera. Before she can flee, Vulture drains her youth. Peter arrives as Spider-Man, finds Flash searching for Deborah, and rescues Kurt Connors. Vulture attacks again, triggering a self-destruct. Flash saves Spider-Man before the explosion, but outside, Vulture reappears, drains Spider-Man's powers, and unmasks him, revealing an aged Peter Parker. With his restored youth, Vulture boasted that Spider-Man's powers made him stronger than ever. He lifted the now-aged Spider-Man high above the burning Toomes aerodynamics building, then dropped him. Just before hitting the ground, Vulture caught him again, saying he would keep him alive until he aged once more. The explosion distracted Vulture long enough for Spider-Man to slip away and cling to a nearby wall, but his frail body gave out and he fell into a dumpster. Weak and humiliated, he hid in the shadows, waiting for the transformation to fade. Meanwhile, Scorpion, disguised in a trench coat and fedora, bought a newspaper about ESU winning the Toomes Foundation Neogenics grant. When the vendor mocked him, Scorpion revealed his tail and destroyed the stand, shouting that Neogenics could make him normal again. Across town, Spider-Man struggled to swing through the city. His reflexes dulled, he missed a web line and crashed onto the street, barely stopping two thieves from robbing an elderly woman. After returning her purse, he boarded a bus, feeling old and powerless. Elsewhere, Vulture attacked Norman Osborn's helicopter, but suddenly mutated into a spider creature mid-air. Norman escaped in horror. That night, Peter called Dr. Connors, who promised help the next morning. At an asylum, Scorpion broke in and kidnapped Dr. Stillwell, demanding a cure. The next day, Vulture stormed Connors' lab, mutating again. Connors explained he'd absorbed Spider-Man's mutation. Before Vulture could react, Scorpion and Stillwell arrived, forcing Connors into chaos as both villains joined forces to hunt Spider-Man. Still elderly, Peter walks to Mary Jane's house to leave a note explaining he can't meet her father. When she sees him and mistakes him for her own father, he panics and runs off. Lost and hopeless, Peter almost gets hit by a car and ends up outside Aunt May's house. Not recognizing him, May kindly invites him in for coffee. As she brings him a sweater, Peter thanks her for everything and quietly leaves. Later, Spider-Man meets Dr. Connors at the Neogenics lab. Watching from above, Vulture and Scorpion prepare to strike. Scorpion leaps down and grabs Spider-Man while Vulture reminds him that Spider-Man belongs to him, but only after the mutation disease is restored. Spider-Man feels betrayed, and Connors apologizes. After reprogramming Vulture's gauntlets, Connors transfers the energy, but instead of returning the disease, Spider-Man regains his youth. Furious, Vulture mutates again into the Man-Spider. Scorpion seizes Connors, but Spider-Man intervenes. During their fight, Stillwell activates the lab's self-destruct, saying it's too dangerous to continue. Connors transforms into the lizard, terrifying Stillwell. As chaos erupts, Spider-Man tackles the lizard away from Stillwell. Scorpion and the lizard collide, and Stillwell warns everyone to flee. Spider-Man escapes with Connors just before the explosion. Outside, Connors confirms Spider-Man is cured, while Vulture and Scorpion survive, consumed by rage. At the Hardy Foundation, Dr. Octopus sneaks in through a vent. Inside, Anastasia Hardy introduces scientist Michael Pingree, who unveils his new invention, the Argon Matrix Laser. He explains that it can melt artificial materials while leaving organic matter untouched, making it useful for safe tumor removal. Suddenly, Dr. Octopus bursts through the floor. Anastasia and J. Jonah Jameson rush out while Jameson orders Peter Parker to stay and take photos. Octopus seizes Pingree and tries to steal the laser, but Peter quickly returns as Spider-Man. Octopus turns the laser on Spider-Man, but it only burns his costume. Realizing the weapon targets non-organic material, Spider-Man redirects it and severs 2 of Octopus's claws. Enraged, Octopus hurls Mary Jane aside, but Spider-Man catches her before their fight causes an explosion that destroys the lab. Both escape, though Octopus flees first. Watching the burning ruins, Spider-Man blames himself for being careless. At the Daily Bugle, Jameson accuses Spider-Man of causing the disaster, while Robbie defends him. Frustrated, Peter decides to quit being Spider-Man. Robbie hands him a letter from a young fan, but Peter ignores it. As he walks home, a flyer for Madame Web lands on his face, and she suddenly appears, revealing she knows his secret. Teleporting him to her parlor, Madame Web tells Spider-Man she will train him for a great mission, warning that he must have the faith of a child before vanishing. Dr. Octopus commands his Octobot to carry the unconscious Spider-Man into his military van, unaware that young Maria Tina Elizondo hides in a small compartment below. They arrive at his secret lab, where Tina watches in horror as Dr. Octopus uses a neural neutralizer ray to paralyze Spider-Man. Just as he prepares to remove the mask, a video call from Kingpin interrupts him. Kingpin demands an update on the Argon Matrix Laser, and Dr. Octopus proudly shows that he has captured Spider-Man and now controls his mind. Kingpin orders him to make Spider-Man serve him, but once the call ends, Octopus mutters that Spider-Man will serve him instead. When Spider-Man regains consciousness, his memory is gone. Dr. Octopus manipulates him, claiming he is a criminal and that removing his mask will help him remember. But Spider-Man's spider sense warns him, and he stops Octopus just in time. Meanwhile, Tina escapes and tells a police officer about Spider-Man's capture, but he doesn't believe her. At the station, she meets a kind taxi driver named Mousy, who remembers Spider-Man once saving her. Inspired by Tina's courage, Mousy agrees to help. They track Dr. Octopus's van to the Wellington Foundry, where Spider-Man, still brainwashed, helps steal a rare metal alloy for the Argon Matrix Laser. Feeling uneasy, Spider-Man hesitates. When Tina calls out to him, she triggers an alarm, alerting the guards. Spider-Man helps her and Mousy escape before the Octobot attacks, allowing Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man to flee together. Tina and Mousy rush to the Daily Bugle, telling J. Jonah Jameson that Dr. Octopus has brainwashed Spider-Man. Moments later, they see a J3 Communications broadcast where Jameson calls Spider-Man a criminal working with Octopus. Feeling betrayed, Mousy declares that every cabbie in New York owes Spider-Man a favor and contacts them through her cab's radio. Meanwhile, Spider-Man, still under Octopus's control, sees Madame Web's reflection telling him to remember. Confused, he follows Octopus into a lab, where Tina and Mousy confront him. Tina pleads with him to remember who he is, but Spider-Man traps Mousy in a web. As Octopus drags her away, Tina calls for help over the cab radio. At the hideout, Octopus retrieves the Argon Matrix Laser while Spider-Man, slowly regaining his senses, talks to Mousy. She tells him Tina believes in him and reminds him of the hero he truly is. When Octopus orders Spider-Man to kill Mousy, he refuses. Furious, Octopus moves to strike, but a cab crashes through the wall, knocking him back. Spider-Man saves Mousy, and seeing Tina again restores his memories. Octopus attacks, but Tina uses the Octobot's control band to free Spider-Man and trap him instead. The police arrest Octopus, and Spider-Man thanks Tina for saving him. Calling her the true hero, he reveals his identity as Peter Parker. Madame Web appears, saying his real test lies ahead as Spider-Man swings away, ready for what's next. One night at Oscorp, Norman Osborn and scientist Wardell Strom work tirelessly to perfect a new chemical weapon. When Strom suggests
18 hours!
resting after 18 hours straight, Norman refuses, saying the formula must be flawless. He recalls a recent board meeting where Anastasia Hardy confronted him about a Daily Bugle article exposing his secret project and the pollution it caused. She reminded him that he might own Oscorp, but he was still accountable to humanity. Norman accused J. Jonah Jameson of leaking the story, but Jameson said he was a journalist first and a shareholder second. Anastasia warned that she would urge the board to replace him as CEO. A computer alarm then drew Norman's attention to a video call from Kingpin, another board member who threatened to kill both Norman and Harry if the weapon was not completed. Furious, Norman cursed himself for letting Kingpin control him.
You heard him, Wardell!
And ordered Strom to continue. Moments later, the airlocks failed, and an explosion tore through the lab. Spider-Man arrived, saving Strom, but finding no sign of Norman. Harry rushed to the scene, and Spider-Man saved him from falling debris. Believing Norman dead, Spider-Man pitied Harry. 2 weeks later, during a board meeting, Fisk delayed appointing a new CEO while Harry angrily declared his father was still alive. That night, a board member vanished, and Peter visited Harry,
No, leave me alone.
only to be yelled at and told to leave him alone. That night, Spider-Man swings through New York, thinking about the pain of losing his parents and how lucky he is to have Aunt May. Suddenly, J. Jonah Jameson's limo is attacked by a figure on a glider. Spider-Man chases him, realizing this isn't the Hobgoblin but a new enemy, the Green Goblin. The Goblin overpowers him, crushes his web shooters, and escapes with Jameson. The next day, Spider-Man repairs his gear and investigates Oscorp, finding Goblin weapon blueprints in Harry's apartment. He begins to suspect Harry might be the Green Goblin. That night, the Goblin kidnaps another Oscorp board member. Detective Terry Lee tells Spider-Man all the victims are Oscorp directors. Fearing the next target, Spider-Man rushes to Felicia Hardy's apartment, but arrives too late. The Goblin snatches Anastasia Hardy, grabs Felicia, and drops them both from the sky. Spider-Man saves Felicia while the Goblin escapes. Later, Kingpin's helicopter is attacked by the Goblin, who kidnaps him too. Peter learns of Kingpin's disappearance and secretly tracks Mary Jane,
Know this. If we love Harry,
fearing Harry's involvement. She goes to Oscorp and is captured by the Goblin. Spider-Man arrives, frees the hostages, and helps them escape by submarine. Inside the collapsing base, he discovers the Goblin is Norman Osborn, alive but unstable after his gas exposure. As Harry arrives, Spider-Man saves them both.
who?
Norman vows to change Oscorp, and Felicia later thanks Spider-Man with a kiss. Inside a courtroom, Peter Parker stands accused of treason. With his loved ones watching, his lawyer pleads for bail so Peter can prove his innocence. The judge refuses, leaving Peter handcuffed and led away. As the police van drives off, a helicopter attacks and drops a bomb. A figure dressed as Spider-Man appears, releases knockout gas, and pulls Peter into the helicopter before he blacks out. Peter remembers how it began. Weeks earlier, Wilson Fisk offered him a job at his new company, Fisktronics. There, Peter met Fisk's son, Richard, and happily joined as a diagnostic analyst, leaving the Daily Bugle behind.
Conflicts, node failures, routine stuff.
But when Peter took a disc home for review, he didn't realize it contained classified defense data. Federal agents soon raided his house and arrested him for espionage. In jail, a blind lawyer named Matt Murdock offered to defend him, revealing an anonymous client had already paid his fee. At an abandoned warehouse, Peter wakes up to find Richard Fisk waiting. Richard admits he's the real spy and framed Peter to hide his crimes. The imposter Spider-Man unmasks himself as the Chameleon. They lock Peter in an airtight cell, leaving him to suffocate.
I'm done for!
Just before he passes out, a masked man, Daredevil, rescues him. Daredevil explains Matt Murdock believes Peter was framed. The two team up to uncover the truth, but when they confront Fisktronics, the building explodes, burying them under the rubble. Inside the burning Fisktronics building, Daredevil holds up a collapsing beam with his billy club to protect himself and Spider-Man. They crawl from the debris and rush to recover the data disk that could prove Peter Parker's innocence. As they climb, rubble hits Daredevil, and Spider-Man helps him to safety before returning for the disk. He reaches a computer, finds evidence clearing his name, and downloads it. Guards burst in and open fire, but Spider-Man dodges their shots. The building collapses, and the guards assume he's dead. Daredevil returns and helps him escape. On the rooftop, Spider-Man thanks him, but Daredevil says he was saving Peter Parker, hinting he knows his identity. He takes the disc, promising to give it to Matt Murdock, and warns Spider-Man their true enemy is Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Before they can act, Agent Susan Choi and federal agents surround them, forcing the heroes to leap to safety. Terry Lee argues with Choi for closing the case too soon. At Crime Central, Kingpin learns the frame-up worked, but Richard Fisk warns that Spider-Man has proof. Enraged, Kingpin blames Smythe. When he hears Aunt May is hospitalized, he orders a spy to watch for Peter. Peter arrives at Matt's apartment, learns Daredevil gave Matt the evidence, and rushes to the hospital despite Matt's warning. Disguised as a doctor, Peter visits May's room but is attacked by Chameleon disguised as Anna Watson. He and Mary Jane are knocked out and taken to Kingpin's mansion, where Kingpin recalls his harsh childhood and criminal father. In prison, Wilson educated himself and learned how to manipulate systems. He erased his past, changed his name to Wilson Fisk, and built a vast empire. When the media called him the Kingpin, he embraced it completely, going so far as to have his father killed to sever all ties with his old life. Smythe is horrified, but Kingpin calmly says that sacrifices are necessary. Meanwhile, Peter and Mary Jane are trapped in a decompression chamber. As the pressure drops, Terry Lee and the NYPD storm the mansion, battling Richard Fisk, Chameleon, and Agent Choi. Daredevil crashes through a window, defeats guards, and subdues Chameleon. Terry fights Choi and frees Peter and Mary Jane just in time. Spider-Man suits up and saves Terry from more gunfire. Chameleon uses his image inducer to mimic Daredevil, confusing Spider-Man, but Daredevil traps him with his billy club rope. Richard tries to escape but is cornered. Before capture, he throws the data disk to Chameleon, who flees by helicopter. Terry arrests Richard as Spider-Man and Daredevil chase the helicopter to Crime Central. Inside, Spider-Man fights guards while Daredevil faces Kingpin. Kingpin shocks Daredevil with a taser cane, but Spider-Man intervenes. They follow Kingpin onto a helicopter, force it down, and discover it was Chameleon in disguise. Days later, Richard and Choi are convicted, and Peter's name is cleared. Matt Murdock thanks J. Jonah Jameson for secretly funding Peter's defense. That night, Daredevil tells Spider-Man he's heading to Washington, leaving Kingpin's downfall in his hands. One night at Stark Enterprises, Tony Stark ordered all interdimensional research destroyed. Scientist Jonathan Owen begged him to reconsider, but Stark refused and offered a new project instead. Feeling insulted, Owen quit, only to be approached by Wilson Fisk, who offered funding for his time dilation research. At Fisk's lab, Owen met scientist Sylvia Lopez and agreed to work with her on the time dilation accelerator, unaware Fisk was secretly watching. Herbert Landon warned Fisk against the plan, but Fisk revealed his goal: to use the machine to control world leaders and destroy Spider-Man. Weeks later, Peter Parker and Mary Jane spent the evening at Coney Island, where Felicia Hardy and Jason Phillips were also on a date. Meanwhile, Owen and Sylvia tested the device, which malfunctioned and created black holes. Owen was sucked inside as the machine exploded, scattering portals across New York. Spider-Man was pulled into one and found Owen trapped in limbo. Later, Sylvia watched news reports of the chaos until Owen suddenly teleported back, his body now covered with black holes. Calling himself the Spot, Owen learned he could create portals at will. After Fisk demanded answers, Owen rebelled, declaring he'd no longer serve powerful men. He and Sylvia decided to use his powers to fund their own lab. Soon after, Spider-Man discovered the Spot robbing a bank and realized he was the cause of the spreading portal threatening New York. Spider-Man confronts Spot about the danger of his portals, but Spot ignores him. Using his powers, Spot hurls Spider-Man into limbo, where webs get caught in multiple portals, trapping him. Spot kicks him above the Statue of Liberty, attaches his webbing to the crown, and disappears. Spider-Man frees himself and tracks Spot using GPS to follow the portal's energy signatures. Meanwhile, Jason Phillips surprises Felicia Hardy with a diamond ring and proposes, but Spot teleports in, trying to steal the jewelry. Jason's punch passes through Spot's portals, and Spot throws him across the room. Spider-Man arrives, but Spot attacks through multiple portals and escapes with the loot. Felicia checks on Spider-Man, who explains he's been distant to protect her, then swings away to stop Spot. Back at the lab, Spot reverts to Jonathan Owen and overhears Sylvia Lopez on a video call with Fisk, who orders her to duplicate his powers. Furious, Owen confronts her, learning Fisk is the Kingpin. At Crime Central, Owen declares himself the new Kingpin, but Sylvia is held hostage, forcing him to obey. Later, Spider-Man tracks Spot to a rooftop and uses his spider sense to punch through a portal, knocking Spot down. Spot teleports Spider-Man to Kingpin's desk, but Spider-Man fights back. Owen rescues Sylvia, tipping the battle. Spot's portal above the city grows dangerously large. Using the time dilation accelerator, Spider-Man and Spot work together to shrink it. To fully close it, Spot sacrifices himself by entering the portal, with Sylvia jumping in after him. Later, Peter reflects on the sacrifice and shares a kiss with Mary Jane. Meanwhile, Hobgoblin learns about the accelerator, vowing to seize it and challenge Kingpin one day. The NYPD surrounds Cletus Cassidy's home, but he throws a grenade that harmlessly explodes. J3 Communications covers the raid, and J. Jonah Jameson, with Joseph Robertson, watches at the Daily Bugle, calling Cassidy's capture front-page news. Robbie tells Jameson that Peter Parker is on his way. Terry Lee and officers enter the home, but she becomes trapped with Cassidy, who disarms her. Spider-Man bursts in, removing a bomb strapped to Cassidy and webbing it safely into the sky. Cassidy believes Spider-Man is dead, but Terry Lee arrests him. Meanwhile, a meteor crashes in Central Park, releasing 2 alien symbiotes. From a rooftop, Spider-Man watches Terry Lee arrest Cassidy when purple smoke surrounds him. Madame Web appears telepathically, warning that an unstoppable evil is coming and urging him to rely on unlikely allies. She tells him, "A warrior keeps his friends close and his enemies closer, then vanishes." At Ravencroft, Eddie Brock speaks with Dr. Ashley Kafka about becoming a hero and losing the Venom symbiote. Cassidy is placed in a cell next to Brock, sparking hatred. In a secret lair, Baron Mordo meets Dormammu, who orders him to contact Brock to serve him and regain the symbiote. Cassidy offers himself, but is rejected. Mordo reports Brock's allegiance to Dormammu, who plans to use him to steal from Stark Enterprises. The next day, Peter and Deborah Whitman visit Stark Enterprises to see the interdimensional probe. Dr. Kurt Connors introduces James Rhodes and Arden Broom, secretly Mordo. Tony Stark explains the probe can instantly transport matter from Los Angeles to New York. In Ravencroft, a woman delivers the symbiote to Eddie Brock, transforming him into Venom. Overpowering guards, Venom breaks through the cell and escapes, while Cassidy watches, longing for similar power. Dormammu meets Venom, explaining that Baron Mordo used Stark Enterprises systems to control the John Jameson probe and deliver the symbiote. Dormammu orders Venom to steal the interdimensional probe. At Stark Enterprises, the probe is tested, opening a fiery portal. Tony Stark commands a shutdown, but Venom attacks. Spider-Man arrives, but is trapped in Venom's webs. War Machine joins, blasting Venom with repulsor beams, allowing Spider-Man to break free. The two heroes fight to subdue him as J3 Communications reports the chaos. Jameson rushes to the scene, convinced Spider-Man is responsible, while Dr. Ashley Kafka also heads to the lab. Dormammu appears in astral form, revealing the symbiote is reproducing, and its offspring requires a host as fanatical as Brock. Back at Ravencroft, the second symbiote bonds with Cletus Cassidy after he pledges eternal service to Dormammu, transforming him into Carnage. He overpowers guards and arrives at Stark Enterprises, ripping War Machine's sonic device. Carnage, revealed as Venom's offspring and Dormammu's agent, overpowers War Machine and knocks out Spider-Man. An explosion seemingly injures Kafka. Venom vows to protect her as Carnage forms a symbiote axe, preparing to strike Spider-Man, showing the new threat's deadly power. Inside the burning Fisktronics building, Daredevil holds up a collapsing beam with his billy club to protect himself and Spider-Man. They crawl from the debris and rush to recover the data disk that could prove Peter Parker's innocence. As they climb, rubble hits Daredevil, and Spider-Man helps him to safety before returning for the disk. He reaches a computer, finds evidence clearing his name, and downloads it. Guards burst in and open fire, but Spider-Man dodges their shots. The building collapses, and the guards assume he's dead. Daredevil returns and helps him escape. On the rooftop, Spider-Man thanks him, but Daredevil says he was saving Peter Parker, hinting he knows his identity. He takes the disc, promising to give it to Matt Murdock, and warns Spider-Man their true enemy is Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Before they can act, Agent Susan Choi and federal agents surround them, forcing the heroes to leap to safety. Terry Lee argues with Choi for closing the case too soon. At Crime Central, Kingpin learns the frame-up worked, but Richard Fisk warns that Spider-Man has proof. Enraged, Kingpin blames Smythe. When he hears Aunt May is hospitalized, he orders a spy to watch for Peter. Peter arrives at Matt's apartment, learns Daredevil gave Matt the evidence, and rushes to the hospital despite Matt's warning. Disguised as a doctor, Peter visits May's room but is attacked by Chameleon disguised as Anna Watson. He and Mary Jane are knocked out and taken to Kingpin's mansion, where Kingpin recalls his harsh childhood and criminal father. In prison, Wilson educated himself and learned how to manipulate systems. He erased his past, changed his name to Wilson Fisk, and built a vast empire. When the media called him the Kingpin, he embraced it completely, going so far as to have his father killed to sever all ties with his old life. Smythe is horrified, but Kingpin calmly says that sacrifices are necessary. Meanwhile, Peter and Mary Jane are trapped in a decompression chamber. As the pressure drops, Terry Lee and the NYPD storm the mansion, battling Richard Fisk, Chameleon, and Agent Choi. Daredevil crashes through a window, defeats guards, and subdues Chameleon. Terry fights Choi and frees Peter and Mary Jane just in time. Spider-Man suits up and saves Terry from more gunfire. Chameleon uses his image inducer to mimic Daredevil, confusing Spider-Man, but Daredevil traps him with his billy club rope. Richard tries to escape but is cornered. Before capture, he throws the data disk to Chameleon, who flees by helicopter. Terry arrests Richard as Spider-Man and Daredevil chase the helicopter to Crime Central. Inside, Spider-Man fights guards while Daredevil faces Kingpin. Kingpin shocks Daredevil with a taser cane, but Spider-Man intervenes. They follow Kingpin onto a helicopter, force it down, and discover it was Chameleon in disguise. Days later, Richard and Choi are convicted, and Peter's name is cleared. Matt Murdock thanks J. Jonah Jameson for secretly funding Peter's defense. That night, Daredevil tells Spider-Man he's heading to Washington, leaving Kingpin's downfall in his hands. One night at Stark Enterprises, Tony Stark ordered all interdimensional research destroyed. Scientist Jonathan Owen begged him to reconsider, but Stark refused and offered a new project instead. Feeling insulted, Owen quit, only to be approached by Wilson Fisk, who offered funding for his time dilation research. Spider-Man tells Madame Web he wants to end their partnership, claiming he has everything he ever wanted and that Mary Jane loves him. She warns him that he will need her wisdom again, saying, "That day will come soon, when the two-headed monster rises from the nether world." Meanwhile, at Oscorp, Norman Osborn creates a miniaturized time dilation accelerator for Green Goblin, cautioning that the portals may be unstable. Green Goblin ignores the warning, vowing revenge on Norman's enemies, especially Spider-Man, whose knowledge of his identity makes him a prime target. Later, Green Goblin attacks an armored truck to lure Spider-Man. Spider-Man arrives, narrowly avoiding a pumpkin bomb, but Green Goblin escapes through the accelerator, leaving Spider-Man searching in vain. While swinging, Spider-Man's spider sense tingles, making him fear his mutation disease may be returning. In an alley, he removes his mask, revealing himself to Green Goblin, who watches from a rooftop and realizes Peter is Harry Osborn's friend. That evening, Peter and Mary Jane attend Harry's birthday party with Liz Allen. Norman Osborn questions Peter about Spider-Man, hinting he knows Peter's secret. Peter feigns ignorance, but Norman's words confirm he is aware. Peter creates a diversion by throwing web cartridges into the fireplace, forcing everyone outside except Norman. He returns to save him, only to find Norman fully dressed as Green Goblin. Green Goblin strikes Peter into the backyard, drops pumpkin bombs, and disables him with an electric blast, tying him to his glider. Peter realizes Madame Web's warning was true. This is the two-headed monster she predicted. Green Goblin flies toward the George Washington Bridge with Peter in tow. Peter frees one arm, fires his web shooter, and attaches a line to the bridge, forcing the glider to crash into the truss. Using the glider's heat, he cuts through the titanium cable, dons his Spider-Man mask, and attacks Green Goblin. Green Goblin straps the time dilation accelerator to his chest, opens a portal, and escapes, clearly spying on Spider-Man. He reappears, threatens Peter, then vanishes through another portal, hinting at Aunt May as his next target. At home, Mary Jane tells Aunt Anna about the Osborn Mansion fire. When Anna asks about Norman, Mary Jane says Peter took him to the hospital and defends Peter against Anna's criticism, declaring her love for him. Spider-Man arrives at May's room and finds her safe, but his spider sense warns him. A time dilation portal opens above May, and Green Goblin hovers on his glider. He remarks that she looks peaceful and leaves, ominously planning to visit Spider-Man's co-conspirator. Later, Green Goblin opens a portal inside Mary Jane's home, releasing a pumpkin bomb filled with sleeping gas. Mary Jane and Anna collapse, and Spider-Man arrives, finding Anna unharmed, but seeing Green Goblin escape with Mary Jane. He swings after them to the George Washington Bridge. On a bridge pillar, Spider-Man demands Green Goblin release Mary Jane. Norman's personality briefly emerges, falsely accusing Peter and Mary Jane of plotting against Harry. Using the distraction, Spider-Man web swings beneath the bridge, strikes Green Goblin, and forces him to drop the time dilation accelerator. During their fight, both roll onto the bridge's suspension wires. Spider-Man rescues Norman, but Green Goblin attacks again. Mary Jane stumbles from the knockout gas, and Spider-Man swings to save her. Green Goblin fires missiles, forcing Spider-Man to drop Mary Jane, who falls. The time dilation accelerator also falls and activates upon hitting a rock, opening a portal. Mary Jane disappears into it, though Spider-Man, thinking she fell into the Hudson, dives in to save her. Green Goblin recovers the accelerator, leaving Spider-Man unaware of Mary Jane's true danger. Believing she has died, Spider-Man becomes furious. He shoots a web line, climbing onto the glider, but Green Goblin pushes him off. The villain attempts to escape using the accelerator, but finds it damaged and lands below the bridge to repair it, with Spider-Man following. Once fixed, the accelerator destabilizes, creating a massive vortex. Green Goblin panics and clings to nearby structures, begging Spider-Man for help. Spider-Man hesitates but realizes he must act. Green Goblin activates his glider to ram him, but Spider-Man dodges, causing the glider to strike Green Goblin and push him into the portal, which closes behind him. With the accelerator destroyed, both Green Goblin and Mary Jane are trapped in limbo. Devastated, Spider-Man calls for Madame Web. She appears but says she cannot bring Mary Jane back since he chose to act alone. Furious, Peter rejects her, demanding she never return. Madame Web leaves, warning she will return when he is truly needed. Peter sits atop the bridge, utterly alone. Mary Jane is gone, Harry has turned against him, and Madame Web is silent. In limbo, Mary Jane cries out for help, but no one is there. As Spider-Man swings through New York, he regrets not preventing Felicia Hardy's kidnapping and worries about Anastasia Hardy. He grimly reflects that he keeps losing everyone he cares about. Nearby, a masked woman in a catsuit robs a jewelry store, deliberately setting off the alarm to draw Spider-Man in. She attacks him, using sleeping gas to knock him out, and pauses to kiss him before leaping off the roof. Spider-Man wakes.
Well, you know what they say about curiosity.
And webs away. Meanwhile, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents
In Sector 814. Get it.
inform Nick Fury that John Hardesky has escaped and been replaced by Chameleon.
Super soldier formula? I'll have...
Fury orders Spider-Man captured, fearing he seeks the super soldier serum formula. At Crime Central, Kingpin and Hardesky await Black Cat's return. Kingpin warns Hardesky of failure.
How did the operation go?
Piece of cake.
But Felicia returns with stolen diamonds. He praises Herbert Landon for creating an improved serum that allows Felicia to transform between her petite and muscular forms. Felicia protests committing crimes while
More crawling.
her father is held hostage.
Take them back to a holding cell.
Placed in a cell with Hardesky, she reassures him, while Kingpin secretly plots to kill them. Spider-Man visits Anastasia, giving her a spider tracer. She later calls Glory Grant to inform Jameson she is returning home. Hardesky helps Felicia escape, and she receives the spider tracer to guide her. As Black Cat, Felicia contacts Spider-Man from a biker bar. After a brief scuffle, she explains she's on his side and needs his help to save Hardesky. Together, they evade S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and subdue them. Later, Spider-Man and Black Cat infiltrate Kingpin's stealth ship. Dr. Octopus grabs Black Cat, forcing Spider-Man to surrender, but S.H.I.E.L.D. intervenes. They escape safely, and Spider-Man delivers Hardesky to S.H.I.E.L.D. Swinging back, he reflects on Felicia and wonders if he has found a kindred spirit in her. Spider-Man swings through New York, consumed by loneliness, guilt, and grief over losing Mary Jane Watson. His thoughts are complicated by feelings for Black Cat. Distracted, he is suddenly kicked by Black Cat, who laughs, "Tag Spider, you're it!"
Instead, I pull a damn
and swings away. Spider-Man realizes she's just playing and chases her, enjoying the moment. Their fun turns dangerous when a rooftop edge breaks and Black Cat falls. Spider-Man catches her just in time and sets her safely on the roof. He admits he wishes he knew her true identity. She suggests revealing themselves, but he insists it's too risky. She sulks, apologizes, and leaves. Spider-Man reflects that letting anyone get close is dangerous. If Green Goblin hadn't discovered his identity, Mary Jane might
Significant heat source right inside.
still be alive. The next day, off New York, Deborah Whitman, Clay Marks, and a crew find Michael Morbius
Morbius, the vampire!
hibernating in bat form. Deborah recalls confessing her love to him, though his heart belonged to Felicia, and promises to find a cure,
Himself into a creature that needs.
bringing him back to New York. At the Hardy Foundation, Peter asks Felicia to cover his class while he attends Kurt Connors' press conference. Connors announces Morbius is in New York and hibernating, hoping to reverse engineer neogenics for a cure. The press panics, and Ned Leeds plans an article warning of the vampire threat. That evening, Felicia sees Morbius's discovery on J3 Communications. Shocked, she drops a bottle, shattering her mirror. Determined, she dons her Black Cat costume and admits she'll need help. The next morning, Connors, Deborah, and Clay begin a cure experiment, briefly restoring Morbius to human form before he reverts. Kingpin and Herbert Landon monitor, planning to exploit ESU research for immortality.
Are you up to Peter Parker?
That night, Black Cat visits Blade's theater hideout, convincing Abraham Whistler to assist if Morbius awakens. At the Herbert Foundation, Deborah is startled by Flash Thompson, who apologizes for earlier behavior. Suddenly, Herbert Landon and Shocker crash the lab. Shocker tosses Flash into Morbius'
I am immortal! And
stasis chamber, and combined with an electric blast, awakens Morbius. He attacks, trying to feed on Deborah and Flash. Spider-Man arrives, webbing Morbius, but Shocker intervenes. Morbius breaks free and flies off, with Landon and Shocker following by helicopter. Spider-Man pursues,
know that I want no harm to
but is attacked from above, losing his web lines and landing on a rooftop. Morbius follows,
Come back to the lab with.
but Black Cat intervenes, kicking him and blasting him with a solar laser from Whistler, forcing him to retreat. Spider-Man and Black Cat track him while Landon and Shocker pursue. In Central Park, Morbius corners Black Cat, demanding her identity. Felicia reveals herself, morphing into her
never stopped loving you.
true form. Morbius calls himself a monster, but Felicia insists he is still the man she loves, asking him to meet her at the clock tower. Spider-Man anticipates Morbius's move and goes to Felicia's apartment,
Didn't happen to see a plasma-sucking monster here.
but Shocker and Landon arrive. Black Cat tackles Shocker, letting Spider-Man escape. She explains she must face this alone and returns to Whistler, who provides a solar weapon. At the clock tower, Black Cat prepares to put Morbius back into hibernation, but Landon and Shocker trap him. A laser blast causes an explosion, alerting Spider-Man. Spider-Man follows a spider tracer to a mortuary where Kingpin enters Landon's lab, Morbius is placed in a machine,
Which will be ours!
reverting to humanoid form. Spider-Man and Black Cat fight Kingpin, Landon, and Shocker. Morbius escapes, and Spider-Man reassures Black Cat she did the right thing. Felicia admits her emotions interfered, and Spider-Man reflects she couldn't have handled seeing Morbius. Felicia Hardy sits in her apartment, torn between helping Spider-Man or confronting Morbius herself. Memories of past choices flood her mind, and she dons her Black Cat costume, swinging from her balcony just as Spider-Man passes, unaware of her presence. He regrets pushing her away from superhero work, realizing he could use her help against Morbius. Meanwhile, in Transylvania, a vampire named Miriam stalks a village. Blade intercepts her, and she drags him briefly, but he escapes when her cape strap breaks. Inside the cape, Blade discovers a locket, recognizing its significance. Back in New York, Black Cat worries Morbius may still be alive. Spider-Man swings nearby, noting the vampire hasn't attacked recently, and deducing he must be starving.
Now I know how to get the rest.
Miriam locates Morbius, and, using their psychic link, extracts his knowledge of the neogenic recombinator. At Empire State University, Deborah Whitman laments she cannot help Morbius because Herbert Landon reclaimed the equipment. Miriam drains Deborah, Flash, and Clay, stealing the recombinator's secrets. Kingpin notices it is missing, and Spider-Man arrives, believing Morbius is responsible. Black Cat insists on handling it alone,
Sorry, Michael, but I can't let you hurt anyone.
seeking Whistler's help. Together, Spider-Man, Black Cat, Terry Lee, and Whistler track Morbius through New York. Black Cat admits someone close to her was once a vampire victim. They locate Morbius at Kishi Electronics,
And I think your dream.
but mistake Miriam for him. In the fight, Miriam nearly drains Black Cat, but Morbius intervenes. Miriam escapes with the recombinator equipment, and Blade departs to pursue her. Black Cat examines Morbius, noticing he's been without blood too long. Whistler confirms the serum he once gave Blade will only work if Morbius truly wants to be human. They return him to the theater, and Whistler injects the serum. Morbius can now sense Blade and Miriam
I can sense her
through
presence.
their psychic link. Spider-Man warns that Blade defending Miriam could make him an enemy, but Whistler reassures him that Blade, like a lost child reunited with his mother, will ultimately do the right thing.
Thank you for coming. I am sorry.
The next day, Blade meets Terry Lee in Central Park. He apologizes for the previous night, explaining his mother seeks to be human. Terry asks if Blade can trust her,
I've gotta go.
and he affirms her love gives him strength before leaving, instructing her not to follow. Meanwhile, Peter Parker readies himself in his apartment, unaware a piece of his torn mask hangs over the dresser. Moments later, Harry Osborn finds it and begins
He will always burn with a desire for plasma.
suspecting Peter might be Spider-Man. At the theater, Whistler updates Black Cat. Morbius is stable, and the serum keeps his bloodlust in check. Morbius admits he is uncertain he can rely on it forever. Black Cat reassures him that her support can help him control himself. In an alley behind the Dungeon Club, Miriam uses the neogenic recombinator to turn two people into vampires. Blade tracks her but discovers her goal is to turn everyone into vampires. Spider-Man, Black Cat, Morbius, and Whistler arrive to stop her. Morbius accidentally activates the recombinator, turning several patrons into vampires. On a rooftop, Blade throws a solar grenade to blind Miriam and the vampires. Spider-Man grabs the recombinator, destroys it, restoring the patrons. Miriam escapes. Blade pursues her with Black Cat, while Spider-Man stays to protect New York, reflecting on his losses and resolving to move forward. In a twisted world, Harry Osborn flees from the Green Goblin, tripping into a puddle. He sees his father, Norman Osborn, floating toward a building shaped like Oscorp, its entrance a giant goblin head. Harry pleads with his father not to leave, but Norman ignores him. Harry enters the building, falls into a massive spider web, and becomes trapped. Spider-Man appears, but to Harry's horror, he transforms into Man-Spider, grabs him, and hands him over to Green Goblin, who pushes Harry into a bottomless pit. Suddenly, Harry wakes in his bedroom.
Turn this valve, Osborn.
It was a nightmare. Splashing water on his face, his reflection morphs into the Green Goblin, whispering that they have much to do together. Harry is coerced
No, a crime has been committed, but I can't.
to Oscorp, where Green Goblin shows him a room full of goblin weapons. The Goblin explains that Spider-Man trapped Harry in limbo, leaving him alone, and orders him to turn an oxygen valve. Harry hesitates but complies, releasing gas that increases his muscle mass. Elsewhere, Frank Castle visits his wife Maria's grave, lamenting endless crime. He meets Anna Watson, who fears for Mary Jane
Osborn, son of the industrial...
and suspects Peter Parker. Frank agrees to help her. Meanwhile, Peter and Liz Allen visit Harry's apartment with pizza. As Liz unlocks the door, Peter's spider sense warns him, and he pulls her out just before the apartment
And now, his son's inherited the...
explodes. Looking up, he sees Green Goblin flying away. Spider-Man pursues, tackling the glider to a rooftop, expecting Norman but encountering Harry instead. Harry escapes as
Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
the real Green Goblin scolds him, demanding more bombs. Spider-Man is stunned,
Harry Osborn, and about the secret identity...
wondering how Harry gained the Goblin's powers. Later, Punisher arrives at the burning building. J3 Communications reports Harry Osborn is missing, and Microchip gives Punisher another address to continue the search. The next morning, Peter Parker arrives at Harry's mansion and discovers a secret room filled with Goblin equipment. On Harry's laptop, he finds a map marking 6 Goblin hideouts across New York. As he exits, his spider sense warns him Punisher is tailing him. Peter heads to the first location, an abandoned apartment, and finds a hidden room of Goblin weapons. Punisher confronts him, demanding answers about Mary Jane and the Spider-Man Green Goblin connection. In the struggle,
I can't believe it. It's the same way I lost...
Peter throws a pumpkin bomb, creating smoke, and dons Goblin gloves to stun Punisher with electricity. Using a glider, he escapes, though Punisher fires a missile, forcing him to crash. Punisher finds a dropped CD with the hideout map and emails it to Microchip. Meanwhile, Harry returns to his lair and sees Green Goblin's image in a mirror. The Goblin scolds him, but praises his temper, instructing him to get a new battle glider at Oscorp. Punisher attaches a tracker as Harry flies off. At Oscorp, Harry prepares
I don't understand. It's...
the glider, telling Green Goblin he doesn't seek invincibility, he only wants his father. Green Goblin removes his mask, revealing Norman Osborn.
Back? Everything will be better again.
Realizing only he can see his father, Harry snaps and decides to become the new Green Goblin. The Green Goblin chases Spider-Man to the George Washington Bridge. Punisher fires a missile but misses.
Failed!
Spider-Man tackles Harry into the Hudson. Unseen, Harry washes ashore and is rescued by Punisher. Mary Jane mysteriously appears. Back home, Peter finds Harry alive and
I just knew that I had to find...
tied up while Mary Jane rings the doorbell. Dawn rises and Spider-Man swings through the city with Harry, promising to help him, finally reunited with Mary Jane. At night, the Daily Bugle staff, J. Jonah Jameson, Robbie Robertson, and Peter Parker attend a pirate-themed charity fundraiser. Guests are dressed as pirates, annoying Jameson, who warns Peter not to take more pictures. A woman introduces George Cocteau, who loaned real treasure recovered from a
Mysterio. No, they can't fly. But Mysterio. No, they can't fly. But
Spanish galleon. Suddenly, Spider-Man's spider sense alerts him as robot pirates storm the room, attacking guests. He rescues an old woman and urges evacuation, but Jameson refuses. Mysterio appears in smoke, revealing Spider-Man cannot stop his automatons. The robots target Jameson, but Spider-Man saves him, allowing Mysterio to escape with the treasure. Using a spider tracer, Spider-Man tracks Mysterio to an alley. Mysterio projects an Arctic illusion, but Spider-Man breaks a fire hydrant to reveal the truth, finally capturing him. Beck is returned to prison, where a guard recounts his past crimes. The next day, Mary Jane Watson
Film. They have 2 scenes left.
Really?
films a movie Wonder Studios wants her to finish. On set, she sees a ghostly apparition of her father, Philip Watson, urging her to follow him. Peter finds her missing and discovers a hidden tunnel built by Mysterio. Changing into Spider-Man, he swings Mary Jane to safety as a cave-in begins. Visiting Beck in prison, Spider-Man confirms the real Beck is behind bars, though illusions persist. Back on set, Mary Jane falls overboard into a drainage pipe, awakening in underground catacombs. Spider-Man arrives, encounters Mysterio, and battles an android version of him. The real Mysterio explains he acquired android technology from Kingpin, whose goal was Spider-Man's death. Together, they descend deeper, where Spider-Man defeats android duplicates of Lizard, Dr. Octopus, and Rhino,
This as the scene of your...
aiming to rescue Mary Jane. Mary Jane enters a laboratory, realizing the father she followed was just an android. From the shadows, a cyborg woman appears, Miranda Wilson, the actress she replaced after the Brooklyn Bridge incident. Miranda restrains Mary Jane. Meanwhile, Spider-Man and Mysterio enter a replica of an ancient temple where Spider-Man is attacked by android duplicates of Carnage and Venom. Mysterio tries to escape but is captured by the Carnage android. Spider-Man fights Venom, luring both over a fire pit and triggering an explosion that destroys them. Hearing Mary Jane scream
About my disappearance.
Spider-Man rushes to the lab, where Miranda explains she wants Mary Jane's body. She recounts surviving the Brooklyn Bridge fall, hiding in the sewers, and being rebuilt with cybernetic enhancements by Quentin Beck, who returned as Mysterio. Miranda lowers a device onto
Fix! The machine was never...
Mary Jane's head to swap their consciousnesses, intending to gain her youthful body. Spider-Man arrives but is nearly captured. Beck intervenes, smashing the controlling computers, revealing the swap machine was never functional. He confesses his love, convincing Miranda she can be accepted despite her appearance. Miranda activates the lab's self-destruct system, freeing Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Beck and Miranda remain behind, seemingly perishing in the explosion. On a nearby rooftop, Mary Jane asks if Beck's actions were cruel. Spider-Man explains that hope kept him going when she disappeared. He professes his love, and Mary Jane reciprocates. Spider-Man removes his mask, revealing his identity, and they share a heartfelt embrace. Peter Parker and Aunt May visit a bank so May can retrieve her and Ben Parker's wedding rings to give to Peter for his upcoming wedding to Mary Jane Watson. Peter hesitates to accept them, but before he can, the supervillain Scorpion storms the bank. He seizes the rings from May, intending to use them in his own wedding to his girlfriend, Sarah. Peter quickly becomes Spider-Man and confronts Scorpion. The villain takes May hostage, forcing Spider-Man to pursue him outside. Spider-Man taunts Scorpion, enraging him into charging. During the fight, Scorpion is knocked into a body of water, causing his exosuit to malfunction. Spider-Man rescues May and recovers the wedding rings from the collapsing platform. Meanwhile, Mary Jane and Liz Allen visit Harry Osborn at Ravencroft Institute, where he is being held. Harry is pleased to see them but becomes hurt when Mary Jane reveals her engagement to Peter. He feigns approval but insists on being left alone. Later, the specter of Norman Osborn appears to Harry, mocking him for his inaction. Fueled by anger, Harry overpowers a guard and steals the keys to escape the hospital. At the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson argues over the phone with Wilson Fisk about who can provide the best wedding gifts for Peter, debating which Queen's pastry chef is superior. Now fully assuming the Green Goblin identity, Harry allies with Alistair Smythe to build an army of robot goblin soldiers for his wedding assault. Smythe is confused but complies, while the Scorpion, whose suit has been repaired, offers his assistance to Harry's plans. At the wedding, chaos erupts as Harry Osborn crashes the ceremony on his goblin glider, loudly objecting to the proceedings. Scorpion and the army of goblin robots attack the venue, forcing guests to flee. Peter quickly changes into his Spider-Man costume and draws the attackers outside, protecting the crowd. He is soon joined by Black Cat and Wilson Fisk, who remotely deploys a Mega Slayer robot after recognizing Smythe's design in the Goblin robots. Spider-Man is both grateful and surprised by their sudden aid, flinching at a playful blown kiss from Black Cat. Inside, Harry tries to coerce the attending priest into marrying him to Mary Jane, but the priest hesitates and reluctantly refuses. Outside, Spider-Man, Black Cat, and Fisk defeat Scorpion and the Goblin robots, though Fisk's Mega Slayer is destroyed in the battle. Spider-Man rushes back inside, only for Harry to threaten everyone with a pumpkin bomb. At that moment, Liz intervenes, pleading with Harry to follow his conscience and appealing to his humanity, and perhaps his heart. Realizing that someone truly cares for him, not just his father, Harry surrenders to Liz and asks to be returned to Ravencroft for help. With the threat neutralized, the wedding resumes. Peter Parker finally marries Mary Jane Watson, and the couple departs in an old van gifted by J. Jonah Jameson. The van, covered in anti-Spider-Man news clippings, coughs and sputters as it leaves, trailing cans behind it, while Mary Jane throws her bouquet. Meanwhile, the specter of Norman Osborn, trapped in limbo and furious at Spider-Man's joy, cries out for Harry's attention in vain. In Moscow, Silver Sable ambushes Dr. Grotesik, catching him off guard. Meanwhile, in America, Keen Marlowe visits May, who introduces him to her nephew Peter, explaining that Keen was an old friend of Uncle Ben. Peter discovers the old passports of his parents, Richard and Mary Parker, and shows them to May. She instructs him to put them away, but Peter secretly eavesdrops on her conversation with Keen. He realizes May had been forced to reveal something about his parents eventually. Conflicted, Peter decides to leave America for Moscow to uncover more about his family's past. At the Daily Bugle, Robertson manipulates Jameson into sending him and Peter overseas under the pretense of covering a story about Spider-Man allegedly interfering with the Russian government. In reality, Robertson has secret affairs to manage in Russia, giving him another motive to travel. Meanwhile, Kingpin reunites the Insidious Six, replacing Mysterio with the Vulture to track a doomsday weapon potentially linked to the unfolding events. Spider-Man follows Robertson to an informant's house, unaware that Silver Sable and the Wild Pack are waiting. The team captures the informant and escapes, leaving Spider-Man and Robertson unconscious beside a ticking bomb. The countdown adds urgency, and Spider-Man must quickly recover to prevent catastrophe while navigating the new threats in Moscow and uncovering the deeper secrets surrounding his parents. Spider-Man manages to rescue Robertson just in time, narrowly escaping the building before it explodes. The next day, Peter and Robertson meet with Robertson's friend, Moscow police officer Boris Pushkin, who claims to have known Peter's parents. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by Police Chief Reinhold Kragoff, who threatens to arrest them if they do not leave immediately. Boris, however, gives Robertson the address of Dr. Grotesik's daughter. Upon visiting her, they learn that Peter's parents were not Russian spies. The daughter's husband, however, seizes the evidence, revealing himself to be the Chameleon. He lures Spider-Man into a trap where he is quickly defeated, rendered unconscious, and delivered to Kingpin. The Insidious Six reveal Kingpin's plan to use the Doomsday device. Before Kingpin can act, Silver Sable and the Wild Pack launch a surprise attack, capturing Spider-Man, the Six, and Kingpin. They are taken to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, only to encounter the Red Skull, or so it seems. In reality, it is Kragoff, Red Skull's son, as Kingpin had anticipated the real Red Skull would have escaped. Kragoff causes the fortress to collapse and escapes. Kingpin and the Six flee, leaving Sable and the Wild Pack bound. Spider-Man frees them, and together they escape the crumbling facility, narrowly avoiding disaster while gaining critical insight into the dangerous forces at play. After defeating the Red Skull, Spider-Man and his allies set out to meet the Fantastic Four, only to discover the team had been ambushed and the Thing kidnapped by Dr. Doom. Determined to rescue him, the heroes infiltrate Doom's empire, bracing for danger, but are surprised to find a peaceful paradise. Using advanced technology, Doom had dethroned Dr. Octopus and transformed New Latveria into a utopia. He even provides the Thing with a device allowing him to switch back to his human form, achieving what Mr. Fantastic could not. Doom, aware of the Beyonder's immense power, attempts to absorb him, believing this will ensure eternal peace and banish villains from Earth. Yet as Doom sleeps, demons from his own dreams arise, threatening to undo his plans. Spider-Man and the heroes confront these nightmarish threats, ultimately defeating Doom and proving that even the most powerful adversaries can be overcome when justice and courage prevail. Once the conflict concludes, the Beyonder erases everyone's memories of the events and returns them to Earth. Alone, he approaches Spider-Man, revealing that the entire ordeal was a test to determine if he was worthy of facing the true challenge. Left to reflect on the experience, Spider-Man considers the lessons he learned, understanding more deeply the immense responsibilities that come with his powers and the importance of courage, resourcefulness, and trust in his allies. Spider-Man finds himself in an alternate dimension where the native Peter Parker has bonded with the Carnage symbiote, transforming into the monstrous Spider Carnage. In this devastated New York, the city lies in ruins, laid waste by Spider Carnage and his allies, Kingpin, Alistair Smythe, the Hobgoblin, and the Green Goblin. The local Jameson struggles to reach any survivors, while Robertson comes to realize that Jameson had been right all along about Spider-Man. The Beyonder appears, explaining that Spider Carnage plans to destroy the multiverse using a matter disintegrator bomb powered by the time dilation accelerator. To stop him, Spider-Man must assemble a team of Spider-Men from across dimensions. He recruits Scarlet Spider, a clone allied with Spider Carnage's brother, a high-tech Spider-Man, a six-armed Spider-Man, a Spider-Man equipped with Dr. Octopus's tentacles, and even an actor dressed as Spider-Man. Together, this unlikely team assaults Spider Carnage's gang at Kingpin's base. The battle escalates when the six-armed Spider-Man mutates into the monstrous Man-Spider, adding chaos to an already perilous fight. Amid the destruction, Spider-Man must navigate the shifting dangers of the battlefield, coordinate his dimensional allies, and confront his own fears of what he could become. With the fate of the multiverse hanging in the balance, every decision and every swing carries the weight of countless worlds, making the mission more critical and more terrifying than anything Spider-Man has faced before. After a fierce battle, the Spider-Man stops Spider Carnage in his home dimension, but he escapes to the high-tech Spider-Man's world. The team rescues everyone, and the Beyonder vanishes after teleporting Man-Spider away. Madam Web sends the alternate Kingpin to prison on his Earth and, with limited power, directs the main Spider-Man to the high-tech dimension, where that world's Spider-Man is paralyzed. Arriving, Peter discovers his alternate self has started the Peter Parker Science Foundation, is engaged to Gwen Stacy, and publicly revealed his identity. In this reality, Jameson does not hate Spider-Man. Kingpin serves as Peter's lawyer, and Mary Jane is alive. Spider Carnage appears, deceiving this world's Kingpin into aiding him, until the truth is revealed. Peter locates this world's Ben Parker, who helps him restore the real Peter's personality inside Spider Carnage. Despite their efforts, the symbiote proves too powerful, and Spider Carnage jumps into an unstable portal, destroying himself. With the multiverse stabilized, all Spider-Men return home. The Spider-Man, who was an actor, explains that in his world, Spider-Man is only fictional. Peter visits that world, meets his creator Stan Lee, and takes him web-swinging as thanks. As a reward for saving reality, Madame Web guides Spider-Man to Mary Jane's location, finally reuniting him with the person he had been desperate to protect, bringing a moment of peace after the chaos of the multiverse crisis. So that will be it from us. If you enjoyed the video, let us know which character was your favorite. Also, do not forget to leave us a like and subscribe to our channel for similar content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you at the next one.